Hi everyone, this is Dakotah Lilly. I'm an organizer at March on the Pentagon. I've helped all I can for March on the Pentagon. I've helped organize in DC. I'm sure a lot of you know me because I'm so famous. But I wanted to get on because I wanted to talk a little bit about the situation in Bolivia, which I'm sure a lot of you know some of the details that are trickling in, but it's a very dire situation going on in Bolivia. You know, and it's very pregnant to what March on the Pentagon stands for, and and what we aim to expose and what we aim to fight against. So there is a coup underway in Bolivia, a country of millions of people, mostly indigenous people, um, because their president, Evo Morales, dared to nationalize hydrocarbons in the country, drastically lower poverty, construct thousands of schools and hospitals, health facilities, almost eradicated illiteracy, every social policy and every social indicator that would be positive for a country is going well in Bolivia, including economic growth, 5% every year. This is a country that went from one of the poorest countries in the world, and even more so in Latin America, to being a country that has been a model over the past 14 years. So right now we see a coalition of the local oligarchy, racist people, because Evo Morales is an indigenous person. He was a coca grower. He got arrested many times protesting against oppressive governments in Bolivia. So we see the oligarchy, we see racist elements, we see, an empire scorned that could not forgive a president for nationalizing his country's natural resources and using them to fund and sustain policies that have emancipated and liberated really millions of people in his country. So a bit of background. There was an election in Bolivia where Evo Morales received more than 10% more points than his closest opponent. The opposition has refused to acknowledge this and thus has demonstrated violently in the streets, where they have taken Morales supporters, beaten them. They have taken mayors who belonged to his Movimiento al Socialismo, Movement to Socialism party, and doused her in paint, beat her, drug her through the streets. It's very similar to the moderate opposition that the United States supports in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, in Syria, all over the world. This so-called democracy-loving, secular, amazing opposition that is just freedom fighters fighting for their country. No, this narrative is much, much more dangerous than that. These are people who are being used as pawns in an imperial chessboard to take down a popular national government, not only in Bolivia, but also these other countries that I have mentioned. So people called fraud because that's what the opposition in these countries do when they lose fair and square in a democratic election. And so they refuse to acknowledge anything other than their preconceived notion of fraud. And so they've gone to the streets, they've burned buildings, they've ransacked Evo Morales' house, they've burned down his sister's house. There's political violence. It's really terrible. And so Evo Morales eventually, after continued protests and the Organization of American States, which is a U.S. proxy organization, which has pushed regime change in the region and is no friend of the people of Latin America, got involved. And so with fear of sanctions looming, because we've seen what the United States can do economically to a country if they refuse to bow to the empire, whether it's Cuba, whether it's Syria, whether it's Libya, whether it's Venezuela, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Argentina over the past couple of years, etc. So what he did is he said that if the OAS finds any sort of fraud, we will go to new elections, which I disagree with fundamentally, because I think the OAS is a partisan organization supported by the United States and its imperial proxies in the region. So I don't think giving them any air was a good idea, but I understand that what Evo was trying to do is a reconciliation process where we can resolve things with votes rather than bullets, which is something the left has always tried to do. Whether or not the right lets us is another story. So he announced new elections earlier today, saying that to bring this violence to an end, to bring these demonstrations to an end, that people can vote. We will, it wasn't very specific, but he said that he is willing to do that. Then the military, the armed forces, the spokesperson for the armed forces, whose name is slipping my mind right now, but I just looked it up not long ago. He, quote unquote, suggested Evo Morales resign, which, when you are the commander of the armed forces, just below the commander-in-chief, which would be Evo Morales, who has all the guns, that's more of a threat than it is a suggestion. So with the impending almost civil war and bloodshed, Evo Morales was forced to resign. So let's be honest, this is not a resignation. This is a coup. This is a coup with the military, the oligarchy, the empire, fascist elements, racist elements, classist elements. This is a process, and let's speak candidly about the accomplishments of over the past 15 years of Evo Morales' rule. Like I said, poverty gone down, thousands of education facilities, schools, and health clinics, almost universal health care, illiteracy and unemployment plummeting, poverty and extreme poverty more than halving, like economic growth that is actually felt by the people. This is a beautiful process that I think needs to be studied and emulated by people in the Western world, including the United States, if I say so. So that's what's pissing them off. They nationalized resources, they took control, social justice, economic independence, and political sovereignty was just way too much for the United States and the international oligarchy to stand. And so them, in coalition with the military and the, media apparatus and, all these oligarchic interests, are trying to bring down Evo Morales. And for the very, very short term time period, it seems as though they've succeeded. But time will tell. Dust has not settled. This has all happened so much in the past 12 hours, really. So we have to be vigilant. We have to read and make sure we're keeping up. We have to defend Evo Morales and his party and his process wherever we can. Because even if one disagrees with him politically, which I do not, I'm going to be honest, I love Evo Morales, but this is fundamentally undemocratic. A military coup cannot be democratic, especially when it's supported by, the most powerful empire in the history of the world, especially when it's supported by economic interests more powerful than at any other time in the world. So that's our job. That's what we need to do. And again, we must remain vigilant. And I know it's very easy to be doomsayers right now that Bolivia has fallen. The process is over. Now will be the years of Pinochet 2.0, and it is lost for the next 20 years. We can't do that, because to be defeatist doesn't get us anywhere. That's a real threat, but it's a threat that must be fought against. We can't accept that as fact, or else it will become fact. And again, in 2015, when Mauricio Macri was elected in Argentina, people were really scared that their rights were going to be taken away, that things were going to be bad. And they did get bad. Things in Argentina are terrible now because of Mauricio Macri. But in less than a month, the people, the left, will return to the corridors of power. So we must fight to make sure that that is possible in Bolivia as well. I think it's even more possible because while Evo may have been forced to resign in a coup, there's still a lot of loyalists. Let's keep in mind that he won more than 10 percentage points more than his closest competitor in the presidential elections. That's no small feat. That's amazing. So that's my update on the situation. If anyone has any questions, I know that there's 40 some people in the room right now. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy. I don't want to be on here for too long because one, I'm kind of sick, and two, I haven't eaten yet. But I'd love to answer any questions that people have. So if anyone has any questions about Bolivia or what's going on, or even Latin America as a whole, I'd be more than happy to. But if I don't get any, many responses within the next 5 minutes, I think I'm ready to wrap up. But so also what I think is interesting is all the parallels between Bolivia and Venezuela, because again, we're really not sure. A lot of things are up in the air right now, much as things were up in the air when Hugo Chavez supposedly resigned and was whisked off by the military. It took a bunch of people coming out on the streets of Caracas and all over the country to demand him to come back, and for that to happen. And I think that's very possible in Bolivia because, like I said, he just won his election. This is a political process that has emancipated millions of people, and there's a very good chance that he will be returned. But we have to fight to make it happen. And we also see a mobilization that is really amazing. I've been getting alerts about mobilizations in Buenos Aires, in Brazil, in Colombia, as well as in Bolivia. Even in the United States, there is a massive movement to say no to this coup, and that's something that we have to participate in, whether it's on social media, whether it's making videos like this, whether it's answering questions of people who aren't informed, whether it's going to these events, whether it's helping organize these events. There's a lot of work to be done. But that is our task right now. What involvement of American imperialism is involved with the OAS voting monitoring that might have caused some of this? Well, anyone, a lot of people don't know what the OAS is. That is the Organization of American States. It's made up of people, it's made up of most governments in the Americas, including the United States and Canada. And they have consistently shown themselves to be very much at the service of the United States. They've been terrible in promoting regime change in Venezuela especially, but also Nicaragua. Venezuela left the OAS, I want to say about a year ago because of the complete imperial meddling that the OAS was allowing. And so having the OAS monitor any sort of voting or elections is like having, what is that, the fox watching the hen house. It's asking my dog to keep track of his food. That was a bad analogy, but it's not impartial. It's very much at the service of the United States, very much at the service of Canada, which is also at the service of the United States. So it's not impartial by any means. So it definitely helped cause it. I think also the OAS, let's be clear, there's plenty of governments in the region that are supporting Evo Morales and supporting the Bolivian state and supporting the Movimiento al Socialismo, whether it's the incoming government of Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner in Argentina, whether it's Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva has called to support Evo Morales, the governments of Mexico, the governments of Venezuela, the governments of Nicaragua have all come out in support of Evo Morales. Social movements from sea to shining sea have come out in support of Evo Morales and no to the coup. So there is a real movement. We just have to make sure that we're vigilant and make sure that we know what we're doing and going forward and knowing the real dangers without being defeatist and without being doomsayers. Yeah. So American imperialism is very much involved, not only in the OAS, but also in the current situation of the coup in Bolivia. So that being the only question that I've received, I think I'm ready to wrap up. If anyone has any questions going forward, if they watch this in the future, if they think of one later tonight, whatever, comment it. I get notifications because I'm an admin here, because I am marching on the Pentagon along with other people such as Cindy and Emma. Um, so I will get that notification and I will answer any questions, whether it's in a video, comment, whether it's written, whatever. I'll do whatever I have to for people to be more involved and informed. So thank you everyone for watching. Share this if you were informed, if you think other people might be informed from hearing this. Sorry, my voice is a little raspy. Like I said, I'm not feeling that well. Yeah, so thank you very much. Evo Morales is not alone. We will make sure he knows that, and we will make our government and all the proxy governments in Latin America know that he is not alone. For independence, for sovereignty, for social justice, no one is ever alone. So thank you, everyone.